Hello and welcome to the Care Partner webinar, Asking for Support in Building Your Extended Care Team. I'm Jenny Fearday, a Community Engagement Manager for the Parkinson's Foundation. Helping me behind the scenes are my colleagues Laura Summers, Courtney Mulberg, and Jennifer DeGrucio. We warmly welcome you to the webinar today, especially anyone joining us for the first time. Please note we are recording today's presentation and you will receive a follow-up email from us with a link to today's recording and slides. We would like to know who is joining us today. Please take a moment to share your connection to Parkinson's disease in the chat button. As we begin, we want to welcome you and take a moment to share the mission of the Parkinson's Foundation. Every day and in everything we do, we are working to make life better for people with Parkinson's. To achieve our mission, we pursue three goals: improve care for everyone with Parkinson's, advance research toward a cure, and empower and educate our global community. Today's program is a great example of one of the things we are doing to help us meet these goals. One example of our mission in action is PD generation. This research offers genetic testing for PD-related genes and genetic counseling to people with Parkinson's at no cost. Commit to helping us advance Parkinson's research today. Check your eligibility and enroll now to be a part of the PD generation at parkinson.org/PD generation. Another example of our mission in action is illustrated by PF Survey. This effort is focused on capturing our community's perspective on various topics in Parkinson's disease, such as mental health and telehealth. I encourage you to consider registering to participate. By signing up for this initiative, we will email you up to 4 times per year requesting that you complete a 10 to 20-minute survey. Your input is a necessity for us to do our work. I'd like to take a moment to recognize that PD Health at Home is presented by the Light of Day Foundation, whose generosity has made this programming possible. The Parkinson's Foundation has been providing weekly educational and wellness programs virtually through our PD Health at Home series, including Mindfulness Mondays, Wellness Wednesdays, and Fitness Fridays. As a reminder, all programs are held at the same time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can learn more and register for these programs by visiting parkinson.org/PD Health. I am now pleased to introduce our speaker and panelists for today. Elaine Book has worked in the field of social work for over 30 years in a variety of community and hospital settings with an interest in the geriatric population. She has worked with individuals, families, and as a leader of support groups. She is the Center Coordinator and Clinical Social Worker for the Pacific Parkinson's Research Center, a PF Center of Excellence at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada. She has become a leader in the PD community, serving as a speaker at support groups, a presenter at neurology meetings, a faculty member of the Allied Team Training Program, mentor with the Parkinson's Foundation, planning committee member of the World Parkinson's Congress 2016 and 2019, and a member of the Parkinson Canada Medical Advisory Council. Ms. Book earned her Bachelor's Social Worker from the University of Manitoba and her Master's of Social Work from the University of British Columbia, with her thesis focusing on caregiver stress. Breck Jordan will join us as a panelist after Ms. Book's brief presentation. Breck Jordan has been volunteering with the Parkinson's Foundation for over a decade. After her father, Ronnie's diagnosis in 2011, Breck found great comfort and purpose in fundraising and educational opportunities with the foundation. Breck currently serves as the chairperson of Moving Day Dayton. She is an Aware and Care ambassador and a board member of the Great Lakes chapter. In her free time, you can find her cooking, reading, gardening, or spending time with her partner of 14 years, Jane, her family and friends, including Boris and Leroy, her beloved feline family members. Welcome.
Okay, well, thank you for that introduction. I should go ahead and get started. So, I really love talking to people who have come with the intention of hearing what I have to say because after raising two sons, I really do get quite excited when people are actually interested to hear what I have to say. And so, with that, I really want to start off by having everyone today just kind of pat yourself on the back for carving the time to be here, because that is a really important step in getting the help that you need. And so, the topic for today, asking for support and building your extended care need, how to use self advocacy and communication strategies to engage family members and also those strategies to cope. So, pretty big topic, but what strikes me here in this topic is a few things: the importance of asking for help when needed and how to ask for help. And that's really about communication. And we have to remember that emotions enter into most communications. So it's really important to address the emotions that are underlying asking for help and the emotions that are underlying communicating well with family members. So, to start us off, I'd like you all to think about a time when you asked for help. It could have been to have somebody get you a cup of tea. It could have been for a ride to an appointment, perhaps help with a tech issue, a time when you had to ask somebody for help. And what did that feel like? And I encourage you to put some of those words into the chat as they come to you. What did it feel like when you had to ask for help? I know for myself, depending on who I'm asking, I might feel nervous. I might feel embarrassed, not confident in myself if I have to ask for help. There's one: relief. I like that. Um, some people have said that they feel weak or dependent, um, incapable, needy. And so I guess in my practice, oftentimes when I'm talking to people about asking for help, I tend to hear more of these more negative connotations when asking for help. But Judy has kindly put in relief and supported. And I would agree with those more positive words like grateful and resilient and strong and empowered. And in fact, independent, because with that person's support, you may be able to do something that you wouldn't have otherwise been able to do. And so, kind of to set a tone of positivity, I wanted to start off by really rethinking what the words help and need might mean, because they do tend to have negative connotations. So here's some acronyms. Next slide. Um, to help, no pun intended, to help reframe the way that you think of the words help and need, because we know that words are very powerful things and words hold a lot of meaning for people. And as I said, a lot of associations with emotions. So the acronym for help: hope, empower, live your best, and be proactive. And for need, the word need is really necessary. Something is necessary to be empowered to engage in daily life. And, even when I think about the famous Beatles song, Help, I Need Somebody, and the lyrics to that song, and not to worry, I'm not going to break out into song, but the lyrics are incredibly genius. I need that the lyrics go, for those of you who may not remember, I need somebody, not just anybody, I need someone help. So much younger than today, never needed anybody's help in any way. But now these days are gone and I'm not so self-assured. Now I've changed my mind and opened up the doors. Help me if you can. I'm feeling down. And I do appreciate you being around. Won't you please help me? And in so many ways, my independence seems to vanish in the haze. But every now and then, I feel so insecure Know that I just need you like I've never done before. So again, I'm sure you're grateful that I haven't sung that for you, but but the lyrics I think are pretty impactful. So in my practice, I often hear comments like, my adult children are so busy with work and with their children, I don't want to bother them, or I don't want to worry my adult children. And so there are often times when the adult children are often unaware of what life is like for the person with Parkinson's or for the care partner. And I also see people with Parkinson's who may not share accurately their needs due to limited insight or to protecting their independence. And there is this fine balance that families are trying to find between providing help and maintaining independence. And there are often two different views of what that should look like. And then I also hear from siblings of people with Parkinson's who think the adult children of the person with Parkinson's should be doing more. What I have seen and what I do know is that there are a lot of emotions connected to these situations, and emotions that are attached to living life with a chronic condition or supporting someone with a chronic condition, such as a spouse or an adult child. And really, loss and grief are the most common of emotions and tend to be the least likely to be talked about. Loss and grief are often normal and valid emotions when dealing with health conditions, and acknowledging them is the first step in being open and honest with yourself. And that allows you to then be open and honest with the others who are in your VIP tent. So open and honest communications and conversations can really lead you to getting the help that you need. And remember the acronyms and what those words stand for. Getting help that you need is all about advocating for yourself. And self-advocacy is defined as the action of representing one's self or one's views or interests. Advocating for yourself allows you to have input and control in your life at times when health conditions often leave you feeling out of control. So why is it so hard to self-advocate and to have conversations that are necessary for self-advocacy? Well, difficult conversations tend to be those which are emotionally charged and may be related to a change that is required, or difficult conversations might be about a circumstance for which there are no easy answers, or maybe a difficult conversation is when there is a need that's not being met. And we often hold back from having these conversations because we fear a negative reaction from the person that we need to talk to, or we worry about upsetting them, or that our ideas or our offers might be rejected in some way, or that we might even experience a negative repercussion for bringing up the topic. So difficult conversations can be related to a history that you may have had with the person that you need to talk to. Who is the person that you need to talk to, and how have they reacted to difficult issues in the past when you've brought them up? You might end up feeling a little bit gun shy. But the truth is that some people in our lives are easier to talk to than others. Some might be open and receptive, yet other folks might be quite quick to take a reactive stance, be defensive, feel easily criticized. And that certainly makes it much more difficult to bring up these kinds of topics. You kind of feel like you have to dance around the topic, and that might make you a bit hesitant to start certain conversations. But the reality is that there are hard matters that we need to talk about with others in our lives. And it's much easier to focus on dinner plans or what movie to watch or a trip that we're going to take, even the news. But sadly, there are other matters that need to be addressed, and making it important that we need to become comfortable with the uncomfortable. So the piece to remember and hold on to is that we have much to gain from opening the door to these conversations. We're invested in the outcome of the conversation, and we want it to go a certain way because, in short, because you care. Next slide, please. So how do you advocate for yourself as a person with Parkinson's or a care partner, as an adult child, or as a caring sibling? And I see from our chat of people who chimed in, there is a variety of people who are joining us today. Well, communication is key. And notice the key letters in the word, you and I, such that communication is about you and I. Communication methods and confidence in yourself and trust in the relationship can really allow for some of those common situations that I talked about earlier from my practice, really does allow for those conversations to be had and to be addressed. And so if, as you think about having an upcoming conversation, consider the following. Having these important conversations is not about being unkind, and it's not an intrusion. It really does show that you care about yourself and you care about others. And especially when the conversation is about what matters to you, as opposed to what's the matter with you. And also what matters to your loved one, not what's the matter with your loved one. This is really the perspective that you want to be coming from, and the perspective that you want to convey. Now, anticipation is, I want to say always, but is often worse than reality. And people tend to stress longer about having the conversation than the actual conversation will actually last. Consider how you would like to be approached, and then act accordingly. Be mindful that your personal view and what you want to see happen can sometimes influence how you approach the topic. So consider starting to plan early, planting seeds about an issue before there is a problem or a crisis to occur, really being proactive. So for example, I worked with a person with Parkinson's who established this core committee. She referred to it as her psychological family of two trusted people in her life, that she knew that if she went to them with a question, with a concern, with a problem, that she completely could trust their opinion. And this was really very helpful to her. So do consider enlisting the help of other people, other family members, family doctor, neurologists, other healthcare team members, or other trusted persons in your life. That might be lifelong friends or members of the clergy. And again, when we start to think about having conversations, I thought it might be helpful for me to review just some general strategies to use when having conversations. So first off, thinking about setting the stage and choosing a time and place and who's going to be there. And timing is really critical. So it might be a good idea to give the person a heads up to prepare, perhaps make it like an appointment. So you might say, Mom, I or we need to talk to you about such and such, and it might be uncomfortable, but it's important, and I'm going to come by on Saturday around lunchtime. But remember to choose the right time for you, choose the right time for the other person. You don't want to do this at the end of a long day or as you're heading out, rushing to an appointment. You might even consider starting to raise the topic with a phone call or an email, whatever seems to fit best for you. And so remember the basics of communication as well. Now, some of these are obvious, but when we get nervous or emotional, sometimes we can forget the basics. So speak directly to the person, be at eye level, speak calmly, avoid blaming and literal finger pointing, try not to raise your voice, no use of insults or threats, don't interrupt, try to stay on topic. It's easy to veer off, but try to stay on topic. Make sure that you've understood what the other person has said before you respond. And if you feel like you're losing control of your emotions, take a break, take a moment, and come back to the topic. Always try to keep it simple and stick to one topic at a time if possible. And certainly start with a positive, end with a positive, use some humor if that's appropriate as well. Certainly be mindful of your tone. The same sentence can be received well or as an accusation, all depending on your tone. So something like, boy, there's not very much food around here. What did you have to eat today? Can be received very differently than if you say, oh my, the fridge is kind of empty. There's not much food around here. Did you have anything to eat today? Very different message, will be received very differently. And certainly consider setting a time limit on the conversation so that both of you know this uncomfortable conversation is going to end. Though the goal is to become more comfortable with the uncomfortable conversations, but it's still good to know that this isn't going to go on ad nauseum. And the time limit might be agreed upon, or it could be created by, say, having an appointment to get to, or a visitor coming by, something else. So with all this in mind, I kind of go back to those common examples that I mentioned earlier from my practice. The perception that adult children are too busy with their lives and that you don't want to worry the children. Really realize that they likely want to help. And if you don't share with them what life with Parkinson's really looks like, they will be unaware. And for the person with Parkinson's who might not accurately acknowledge their needs, having that sensitive conversation and respecting the emotions beneath their actions, and really trying to find a balance between provision of help and maintaining independence. And for the siblings of people with Parkinson's who think that the adult children are not doing enough, excuse me, consider having a family meeting with everybody involved and come up with a task delegation plan that might work for everyone and with everybody's demands. Next slide, please. So some take-home messages, start as soon as possible in the disease journey to keep the lines of communication open. And that way it becomes your norm. So for those of you who may be a little bit further along in the journey and you need to make some changes now, which might, as I said, be a little bit later in the game, start small and with realistic expectations of all the players. Consider scheduling regular touch points to stay on top of a communication. So maybe monthly, what has gone well? What could have been done better? These are things I wanted to say to you, but I didn't. Use kind of some people use their birthday as the monthly reminder. So my birthday is July 30th, so it would be August 30th, September 30th, October 30th. Once a month, that would be my day to connect. And certainly consider working on the relationship that you're engaged with in a meaningful or fun way, rather than focusing on Parkinson's disease all the time. So for the adult child who's coming to visit, come and go for a walk, play a board game, watch a movie together, rather than discussing symptoms of Parkinson's for the whole visit. Or for the spouse, try and take a short vacation in the week from the care partner role and allow you to reconnect with your spouse on a spousal or relationship level rather than as a care partner. I have one care partner that I worked with. She's come up with this idea of a memory jar. And so they put a whole bunch of things that they did together in their past, going far back, more recently, and they've got it in the memory jar. And then to connect, they just pull out one prompt from the memory jar and they sit down and have a conversation about it. Super easy, and it's just a way to connect on something other than Parkinson's disease. Things will certainly change over time, and you're going to need to change your approach to living life with Parkinson's. If we keep doing the same thing, doing things the same way, we're going to continue to get the same result. So if you're not happy with how things are going right now, something needs to change. So here's a call to action. Think about a conversation that you wanted to have and take some of these strategies into your courage bank and make a plan. Go in with the perspective that the conversation is about what matters to you or to the person and not what's the matter with you. No conversation tool or formula is guaranteed to make for a perfect conversation. but maybe using some of these tips that I've talked about today can help you to organize your thoughts and prepare. And keep in mind that denial is certainly common, and these are often very strong emotions to deal with, like sadness and grief and fear and anger. So treating whatever issue it is with tact, with respect, patience, and understanding during these difficult life events, as well as remembering the love and respect that you have for one another, that can help. Every situation is different, with different concerns and different players and personalities. It's very individualized. So think about the unique features of your situation and which of these strategies might suit you and the person that you're living with or that you're having a relationship with. So I've been doing this, as you heard from my bio, for a number of years, but really much of what I've learned has come from the people that I've had the privilege of working with, both people with Parkinson's and care partners. And so now we have the privilege of getting to hear from Breck, who has navigated and continues to navigate life with PD in the picture.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Elaine, for a wonderful presentation. So many things that you mentioned just echoed with me and really resonated as experiences that I had had, conversations that I had had, and all of those sort of things. So thank you for speaking to that. You did a wonderful job. As Jenny said in my intro and Elaine said, my name is Breck Jordan. I'm very happy to be here with you all today. My father, Ronnie Jordan, was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2011, and we were very, very close my whole life. And so once he was diagnosed with PD, there really wasn't any sort of question about the fact that I would play an important role in his caregiving. So at that time, I became an active care partner alongside of my mom. I'm an only child, so there were no other siblings to call in, and really not a lot of family close by. So it was kind of just my mom and I working together as care partners for him. Before I get into some of the other things that are, related to being a care partner that can be really scary and stressful and anxiety inducing and that sort of thing, I'll share just a quick little anecdote just to kind of break the ice here. This story, I think, in my mind, is what makes me uniquely privileged to be able to speak about this topic. Along the way, my dad had so many hospitalizations. We were at the hospital so many times, I just can't tell you. And I felt like a pro at it. We had our wear and care kit, and I had his medication lists and all of these things, and I was ready to go, and I was out the door with him. And I think that sometimes maybe I came across a little strong with nursing staff in regards to him getting his meds on time. So this one time, he is at the hospital, and it's, day 2 or 3 or something. And this great nurse that we'd had for the day, she's going off shift, and another nurse is coming on duty. And so she brings the other nurse in, and she's introducing the new nurse for the evening to everyone in the room. This is Ronnie, he's the patient, and all of that sort of thing. And then she turns to me and she says, and this is his daughter, Breck. She's a really big advocate. Now, in that moment, I'm fairly certain that she wanted to call me something else, but advocate is what came out. And I took that title as a badge of honor, and I was okay with that. Yes, I was an advocate for my dad. I will accept that title. So long before I was a really big advocate, I was scared, and I was an emotional wreck, and I wanted to help, and I didn't know how to help, and I was looking for answers. And part of that journey was reaching out to the Parkinson's Foundation. Probably a year into my dad's diagnosis, we had some pretty significant issues that were happening with his care, and we were displeased with the care he was receiving. We were looking for new care, and we were seeing just kind of a general neurologist, and we wanted to find our way to a movement disorder specialist, and all of those sort of things. And so, it culminated into me calling the Parkinson's Foundation helpline, 1-800-4PD-INFO, and quite honestly sobbing on the phone with the person who was on the other end of the line and saying, I don't know what to do. I need someone to help me. And once she had kind of calmed me down and talked me off the ledge, she was able to advise me about movement disorder specialists and even gave me some names of some folks that were in our area and that sort of thing. And that segued into us moving to a movement disorder specialist, where we received wonderful care, and then kind of built our care team from there. So, just to echo what Elaine was saying, I know it's scary, but you can never be too scared to make that first reach for help and to ask for help in whatever small way. It really makes all the difference in the world. I mentioned when I was talking about the hospitalization, aware and care kits. I am an aware and care ambassador, so I will scream that from the rooftops. I used aware and care kits constantly. Ours was always by the front door and ready to be grabbed and taken with us to a hospital visit, whether it was planned or unplanned. And so if you don't have an aware and care kit, that's a big tool that you, I think, in my opinion, should have in your toolkit. There's plenty of other things that I can speak about as well, but I don't want to ramble on. Elaine, just listening to you talk, you had so much to say about not being afraid to ask for help or opening those doors. Do you want to talk a little, can we have a little bit of an organic conversation about that topic?
Absolutely. As you were talking, Brooke, I was jotting down a couple of thoughts. And you described yourself, as an only child. But from my work, one of the things, and this kind of relates to asking for help, but one of the things that there are oftentimes adult children who I'm working with, or even care partners who, so the adult children might be a family of 3, but really there's only one who's doing kind of taking it on, whether it's for other responsibility, whether it's family dynamics, whether it's physical location. So in as much as people may actually physically have other siblings or other relations, oftentimes I'm finding that care partners make the statement that they feel very much alone. And so one of the things that I was going to ask you about asking for help was whether or not I know you're very involved in the foundation, but did you go to support groups at all, or see a counselor, or have kind of that lifeline friend? So what did that look like for you?
Yes to all of the above. I will tell you, I most definitely, I know it can be a taboo subject for folks sometimes, but I most definitely sought counseling and therapy. That was a huge thing for me that I benefited from. And because I think it really helped me so much, I believe it also benefited my father and my mother. I also have an amazing group of friends, one in particular who I can never really say enough good about what it is that she did for me. She has no relationship whatsoever to Parkinson's. So it's not as if we were having, these intense conversations of, she understood exactly what was going on, but she was very much my person that I could call at any time. And she was just a great listener. Even if it wasn't something that was clear for her to understand, she listened, and she loved me through it. I've heard, I had someone in there, a counselor once tell me that it's difficult to look at grief and to look at someone who is actively struggling and grieving. And so sometimes that's a struggle for the people in your sphere to see you like that. It's uncomfortable and they don't know what to do with it. If you have someone who can and will listen and is being a great friend like that, take them up on it. And extending your family. So, my family was a small family. It's myself, my mom, and my dad who had PD. I have a partner that James, and we've been together for 14 years. So he was involved with my dad's care as well. And then, my circle expanded from there. I reached a point. I've always been the person that, I don't want to take too much. If we're going to the movies and you buy the tickets, I'm scrambling to find PayPal to send you the $11.25 because I don't want to owe you anything and that sort of thing. And quickly, I kind of got away from that and realizing that if people are offering to help, let them help. My pride got the better of me for a long time. Oh, no, we're fine. It's okay. And then I reached a point where it was like, no, we're not okay. And if you're offering to help, great. And then I would try to be very specific about what it was that I needed help with. I needed help, with meals this week for my parents. I needed help with someone who could pick up meds tomorrow because I'm not available to do it. So can you swing by CVS and pick up those prescriptions that are due? Things like that, and just expanding that care circle.
Yeah, so I've heard so many things in what you you said. So one of my questions was it hard to reach out to a counselor for the first time or go to a support group? Was that hard? Because for some people that's not hard. For some people it's very hard. And I'm just wondering if there's anything that you'd be able to share with the audience that might help normalize it or make it easier for people to do that.
Yeah, honestly, it was difficult. It was something I had never done before. I had never had any sort of counseling or anything like that prior to that, to this experience. And it was difficult. And in getting into counseling and talking about it further, I think that I realized that part of the reason it was so difficult for me to do that was because that was kind of yet another step into this process, and acknowledging that my dad was, really struggling, and that I was really struggling, and my mom was really struggling. And coming to that realization that I needed help and we needed help. That's a hard one.
And being comfortable with that vulnerability and accepting for yourself that you need help. But again, that idea that I really want people to embrace is that getting help or having a need is not a negative thing, that it can bring so many positive things into your life. And I loved what you said about, if somebody is offering help, like they accept it. I recently read this or listened to this book by Shonda Rhimes. It's called The Year of Yes. And I learned of it through another Parkinson's website. Now, her vision of the Year of Yes was really, it was based on saying yes to things that otherwise made her feel uncomfortable, that were kind of out of her comfort zone. And so I think if accepting help or asking for help is something that you're not overly comfortable with, this is your year of yes, and to make that happen. And or maybe it's going to be a month of maybes. Maybe a year of yes feels too daunting to people, but maybe you could start with a month of maybes. Maybe I will ask for help, or maybe I will, but I say go for it and jump right into the year of yes. I think it can be life-changing for sure.
I would totally agree with that. And it opens up your circle. Unfortunately, we lost my dad in October of 2020. But, his greater care circle that we ended up kind of developing, those people are still a support to me. And I'm still, very much in contact with them and stuff like that. Now, when I say that, I should clarify, I'm not necessarily speaking about his doctors or his, physical therapist or that sort of thing. I'm talking more of the family and friends who surround us, who we kind of opened it up and broadened our care circle. Family friends that we hadn't talked to in a long time that came along and said, we live in the neighborhood nearby your dad. Can we start stopping by to sit with him for an hour? In the evenings? We took them up on that. That made a huge difference. Well, those folks, were folks that we hadn't really talked to in a long time. Well, now we have dinner once a month with them, and it's still a bonded relationship it's great. And we're able to talk about my dad and share memories and laugh, and that's beautiful. That's really been healing for me too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then the other thing that I was going to pick up on was where you mentioned the helpline, excuse me, the PF helpline. And that was kind of one of your first steps that you took. And, I know a number of the people who work on the helpline, and I guess I can't say enough about that as being a doable first step. You don't have to go anywhere. You can do it when it suits you. It's not like there's a certain class time. Of course, it is between 9 to 5 on a Monday to Friday, but nonetheless, it may even be extended those hours, but that it's very accessible as a first step. And I think that they're also excellent in connecting people to local resources. So, that helpline person isn't going to be the one who's going to be holding your hand for the next 5 years, but that helpline person is going to connect you to the folks who are going to. Is that accurate? Would you agree with that?
I would totally agree with that. It may be a little scary initially, but it's a very accessible, easy step to make. Pick up the phone, make that phone call, get the support. And then, like I mentioned, they were able to direct me to folks that were in my area, and people that ended up becoming, my dad's movement disorder specialists and people like that we ended up with for, 6-7 years or something like that. So really worthwhile relationships that benefited my dad. He got great care from them. And that was at the recommendation of the helpline.
Great. There was one question that came in that is directed to you, Breck. So it's, as an only child who's currently sharing caregiving responsibilities with her dad, so her mom has PD, your experience really resonated with her. Any tips on how to navigate your comfort level with asking for help or readiness to make change that does not necessarily align with that of the care partner? So I think we've touched on that a little bit, but just wanted to see if there was anything else that you wanted to add, especially that part about when the change doesn't resonate with the care partner.
Sure. I think that, there were a handful of times my dad had PD, so my mom and I were the ones who were kind of working together in tandem for his care. There were times, honestly, that, maybe she and I didn't see eye to eye, or we weren't in complete agreement about something. I always tried to just keep in mind that my dad was the one who we were trying to benefit. I couldn't allow whatever, disagreement my mother and I may have had about something. I couldn't allow that to get in the way of my dad getting great care. So his well-being was my first concern, and that's what I tried to remember. And so, I think that in thinking back about it, I think there's probably a handful of times where I ended up giving in, and my mom, maybe had her way, so to speak, in regards to something. And then I'm sure there's a handful of times where it was vice versa. And my mom ended up, kind of giving leeway towards me, towards whatever decision it was that I was, thinking was the better one. But keeping a calm, cool mind, and, not being argumentative, and just trying to remember that you're working in tandem for the same outcome, the same goal, which is really great care for your loved one with PD.
Yeah, and I think, you really are speaking to, some of the things that I mentioned in terms of communication. So when you're then communicating with that care partner who might be, where there are two care partners that might be disagreeing on a plan of care, how do you navigate that? And those where some of those communication skills have to come in place, keeping in mind the end goal, which is ultimately the best care. I am one of 4 daughters, so can you imagine what those conversations look like? And 4 different personalities, 3 different cities, and trying to come together as a team in terms of how to approach certain caregiving issues can definitely be a challenge. But at the end of the day, if we can all kind of start those conversations with, okay, we have mom's or dad's best interest in mind. What are the needs and how are we going to get there so that we can all, and it is give and take for sure.
Absolutely. No. And Elaine and Breck, you guys really touched on some great talking points. Elaine, I really love the idea that, as you mentioned earlier, as you're progressing with the PD journey, whether as a patient or a caregiver, if things are not improving for your daily living, change, right? And exploring those options. And I love the memory jar idea. I mean, exploring, being creative, those connecting, and absolutely finding different identities to that new role that you're carrying on. So some of the questions we've gotten in our registration, and I think it's pertinent to that discussion about, changing and being creative, coping skills, right? One person asked how to ask for help and accept the new role. And, that's a very good question.
So interestingly, I just did a panel with Parkinson's Foundation last week, and it was a panel of care partners. And there was one care partner on the panel, a spouse, and she was just, she's just said it so beautifully, and I will not do it justice, but the gist of it was that she just came to a point where she accepted that she had a new role in this relationship and kind of stopped swimming upstream on the old role and just really recognized the new role. And she said that just freed her and allowed her to embrace the good and the bad in that new role, because she wasn't holding on to the old role anymore. And I thought that was pretty impressive.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
That is. We talked about accepting the help that's given and offered, but sometimes, the challenge that some individuals do face is what kind of help, how do we get them to help? Yes, we want the help, but how do we know how they can help us? And sure enough, that was a great question. Several questions that we did receive is how to ask for help and what kind of help can a family and friend help with during the PD journey?
I would say to that, like I was mentioning to Elaine, you need to, as a caregiver, when you reach that point where you do realize that you need help, I literally sat down and made a list. What are my needs? Where am I lacking? Where am I dropping the ball? Where's my mom dropping the ball? Or just, we can't keep up, and so making yourself a list and again, like I said before, trying to take the pride, probably, I guess is the word, out of it. And just say like, yeah, we need help with laundry, quite honestly, or we need help with someone going to the grocery and picking stuff up, picking groceries up or dropping off a meal. I had people that would just offer to help, and I had kind of a running list of places to plug them in. And some of that was hired help as well. We had assistance from some folks that came in to give my mom kind of a break nightly and stuff so she could get out of the house. We were very lucky. I would throw this in there to just say, if your loved one with PD, at least in the US, is a veteran, check into veteran services. There's a lot of things that you may be eligible for that you don't realize. So, some of that time was paid out of pocket by us, but some of it was covered through Veterans Affairs. So that's something to consider as well.
And I would absolutely echo what you've said, Breck. Whenever I'm working with people who have now agreed to kind of bring help into the home, and I always say, okay, before you even have that interview with the person or approach the home support agency, you have to write down what are the things that are challenging, what are the things that you need help, so you can be clear in that conversation. We need to be clear when we're asking for help. And I think the other thing that I would just add to that is that so many times I hear people say, well, I wash and dress him every morning, but I've got that. I can do that. And then I take him for his walk, but I've got that. I can do that. And before you know it, they've kind of gone through the whole day and say, yeah, but I've got that. I can manage that. And I kind of try to help them look at kind of the whole day and say, okay, but which are some of those tasks that you could delegate out to somebody else? Because if you didn't have to do the washing and dressing in the morning, you could go for a walk and get some exercise or meet a friend. And so really helping people to see that they don't have to do it all, that it's not sustainable to be doing it all. That was another pearl that another care partner shared with me. She said whenever she was looking at what she was doing or something that she took on, she said, is this sustainable? And if it wasn't sustainable, then something had to change. So always ask yourself, what you're doing isn't sustainable, then you need to make a change.
That's a great point. Absolutely. And as you mentioned, some of the resources that we do have, because some questions did ask, there are those who are alone and may not have that social support. And I'm so thankful that you did mention about our helpline. Again, our helpline is available to provide you with linking you with resources that are available in your area that you may not be aware of. And for those of you who may have missed it in our chat, we did share the helpline number, which is the 1-800-4PD-INFO. And then you can also email them at the helpline at parkinson.org. And again, as Breck mentioned, they'll connect you, they'll identify you with specific types of, connections through chapters that exist in the area, support group, or even medical team staff that specializes in Parkinson. So again, we encourage you to take advantage of this helpline because they'll just bring you, opportunities and connections to help build that support team that you need during your PD journey. One of the last question, and I thought it was pretty significant as we're talking about resources, is the Aware and Care Kit, as you mentioned, Breck. And we had a participant who did ask, what is in the Aware and Care Kit?
Well, it is a kit that is free to you, being provided by the foundation. And inside the kit is pretty much, in my opinion, everything that you need to have to be able to visit the hospital or even a doctor's appointment, whether it's planned or unplanned. And it's something that if you put a little time into it on the front end, the back end, you benefit. So once you get a kit in hand, spend a little time to sort through everything. Inside, you're going to have things like tear pads that have X amount of pieces of paper on them where you can list all of the medications that your person with Parkinson's takes, their milligrams, the frequency, all of that. And so if you fill some of those out in advance, when you do end up at the hospital in the emergency room and it's a surprise, you already have some filled out. You can tear one off and hand it to the doctor or the nurse who comes in to take care of your Parkinson's patient. So they already have it in front of them, what meds that the person should be taking and at what time. There's a magnet. If you end up staying in the hospital, there's a magnet that can go on the dry erase board that lives in every hospital room ever. And it says, I have PD, I have to have my meds on time every time. And it's just a great reminder to the medical staff, who I just like to insert, they're not giving your loved one their meds on time to be mean or because they're doing it on purpose. They're taking care of lots of different people. There's all kinds of flaws in that system that cause them to, maybe not get meds on time. They're not doing it to be mean. But anyways, it is a common issue for folks with living with Parkinson's. Also in the kit is a bracelet that says I have PD, I need my meds on time every time. There's a booklet that has all sorts of information, kind of a way to make a game plan if you have a hospital visit. Trying to think what else. It's in a little pack, like almost like a makeup bag, ladies. It kind of looks like that. And I always just had inside of the kit a little bit of each of my dad's meds in his bottles. So I had his carbidopa, levodopa, all of his meds in bottles, so that when we went to the hospital, we already had just a little, because there were some times that they weren't able to get a particular medication at the hospital pharmacy. So we had a little of it on hand just in case.
Well, thank you guys so much, Elaine and Breck, for sharing your personal stories as well as your experience with talking about Parkinson and building that support group. I'm going to conclude this panel discussion, and I'm going to share some closing remarks. So I'll share my screen in a bit. So on behalf of all of us at the Parkinson's Foundation, thank you so much, Elaine Book and Breck Jordan, for discussing how people with Parkinson and care partners can use self-advocacy and communication strategies to help engage their family members and other supporters through the PD journey. And many thanks to all of you who joined us today. Thank you for submitting the questions and engaging in the discussion in our chat. A follow-up email will be sent with a survey. Please tell us what you thought about today's program. You'll also receive a link to today's presentation, additional resources. Please join us for upcoming PD Health at Home programs each week for you and your loved ones with Parkinson's, including Mindfulness Mondays, Wellness Wednesdays, and Fitness Fridays. And as we discussed about the Aware and Care Kit, the Aware and Care Kit can help you and your loved ones to plan for a hospital visit and advocate for the best possible care during the stay. Again, to obtain a kit, please visit theparkinson.org/aware and care. And as we discussed about our helpline, if you have any questions today that was not answered, please reach out to our helpline by calling 1-800-4PD-INFO or emailing helpline@parkinson.org. You can use the same contact info to order our free resources, educational book series, and our hospital safety kit.